All right, Pete Thompson, thank you for checking in with ASC this year. Hope you're staying safe, all things COVID. Yeah, how have you, before we get to the book, which I can't wait to dive into because I'm a huge 90s fan, how have you been handling the quarantine or all the COVIDness?
It's been crazy. It's been, I mean, being in New York, it's like, it's kind of mental just like being here and having it not be what New York normally is. If you live in some town in the Midwest or something and you're going through it, there's a shift. But like for New York, the shift is really drastic. It's really, almost like I Am Legend type feel, you know what I mean? So it's been good though. It's been nice to have some peace and quiet.
Well, let's get into the book, 93 Till, a photographic journey through skateboarding in the 1990s. Is that a nod to Souls of Mischief? Where's the 93 Till? What's the nod on the
It was
name of the
definitely
book?
taking into consideration that song in particular. It was such a iconic song for that period of time. I think it was in 411. Yes, I mean it was in. I think it was in an issue of 411. But it's also just like, Souls of Mischief were so attached to skateboarding in a way that like, we sort of, I think skateboarders during that time sort of claimed Souls of Mischief as their like official hip hop like group or whatever, there was just like this connection between that group, that song, and the skaters that were around back then, especially in San Francisco. But it also has to do with just, 93 was the first year that I think I had a photo published in a magazine. It's when that's the year I started working for Slap.
I mean, it goes without saying that. I mean, that's, as a photographer, that's the pivotal moment, right? When you finally get published.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was the crappiest photo you've ever seen. It was a picture of Mike Sinclair actually nose bonking this like little like some sort of a ledge thing, and it was out of focus and blurry. But I was like, all right, that's it. Here we go. Like, this is it. I'm doing this.
Half the fun when you were shooting with Mike Sinclair is that you're laughing half the time, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know what? What's funny is Mike was funny back then, but I feel like that humor sort of developed a little bit later.
Yeah.
But he's just like, I mean, we've always said, like, me and my friends from North Carolina say, like, if you have a story and you think it's funny, don't tell anyone. Tell Mike and have him tell it, and everybody laughs.
Totally agree. So I want to ask, pre that, when you finally got published in Slap, what were some of your visual inspirations or other photographers or filmers that had a profound impact on you? Can you think of any of the time that definitely helped motivate you to get you to the point where you started to have some success?
Yeah, I mean, Grant Britton.
Yeah.
Grant was like huge for me. When I was like 10, 11, 12, I had all the photos on the walls of Hosoi and like Tony Hawk and, like Chris Miller and Gator, like that. I had on the wall. So I looked at his photos every day. So yeah, obviously Grant, just the precision of his photography and how it was just so sharp and so bright, and it just like jumped off the page, made you feel like you were there. And that was something that I really wanted to incorporate into what I was shooting, is like, how do I make people feel what it feels like to be, right in front of this stuff happening. But I mean, after that, I think that Dan Sturt was like, he was on another planet. He was somebody that I feel sort of transcended the way that people photographed skateboarding. Like, it was no longer about the trick so much. It was about, it's almost like the trick wasn't even the most important thing in the picture, which had a huge impact, because that sort of made my mind really expand as like what's possible and what you can, the story that you can tell shooting skateboarding. And he just like blew the doors off of that for me. And then, you know, later on it was like Spike Jonze. Yeah, probably those guys were probably the most influential. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty, you know, that's a pretty elite list.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Take us through the process of going through. I mean, was it a cathartic? Was it obviously nostalgic? But going through all the images from that time, bring back a lot of memories. Yeah, take us kind of the journey of putting a book like this together. It's a Herculean task at best.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and I didn't know that getting into it. It was definitely a shock. Like, I was like, I'm digging and digging, and this just keeps going. Like, there's no bottom to this kind of thing. Not just with the photography, but like this emotional experience and being able to put life together in actual chronological order. And you're like, wow, like, I didn't even think that came before this. And I never really connected that I was in these places. It's just, when you step away from something for as long as I did, yeah, it's a huge sort of it's an emotional experience, you know, and just really thinking about like you see the progression of what the craft is, whatever you're doing, you know, when you look back. And
You saw your evolution as a photographer. You know, you could see how you were improving. You would see kind of like going through these images. Would you notice your evolution as a photographer, how it evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a moment where I was like, you know what? It's okay that this photo looks like shit. Like, I shot it in 1981. Like, I wanted to be able to show that in the beginning. Like, there's the photos in the beginning of the book. Like, I didn't really bother tweaking them very much because I just was like, they should live the way that they are because they show a time in my career where I didn't really know what I was doing. But also, like, I think that looking through all of the photos, I had this experience of reconnecting with like my affection for skateboarding, which I had sort of pushed aside after I stopped in 2004. It's just I needed to make space for new things. And so when I started the project, I was like, wow, I have this like this warm feeling. You know, this is a time of my life and a time of probably yours and everybody else that lived through it, when everything that we did was done for the love of what we were doing. There was no other reason to be doing it.
So besides Small Wheels and Stovepipe Pants, what other kind of stories did you unearth, or what kind of backstories can we expect to see in the book? Because I'm sure that with the photos, there's always it's that interesting backstory that we maybe didn't know at the time.
You know, the first thought behind the book was I wanted to sort of connect it with style and fashion and culture today. And as I started to do these interviews with these guys that are in the book, I sort of moved away from that, and it kind of became, the focus kind of became like examining who were we as skateboarders back then? Like, what kind of kids skated back then? And that's a lot of the interviews and the quotes and stuff in the book of, you know, we were a really like, I think that the DNA of skateboarders back then was much different than it is now. It's like you know, there was a lot of, I mean, in order to be a skateboarder, you have to be at least somewhat self-destructive. Like, you know, you're not going to chuck yourself off something unless you have some of that in your body. But I also think that, like, along with that came a desire to shape the way that the world saw skateboarding. And I think that these guys deserve a lot of credit for navigating through that and saying, these tricks are tricks that should be standard. These tricks over here are sort of like niche or whatever. These people who skate like this are going to fall into a certain category. And all of that had to be sort of developed and discovered. And I think that those guys that were around during that period of time, they were the stewards of that, whether they knew it or not. And everything that they did and the way that they shaped how skateboarding was supposed to be, they deserve credit for that, like not, if you go to a spot and someone else did the same trick, you don't do it.
It was definitely a different code that does not exist anymore. And I think
Yeah.
they were unapologetic too about, you called them stewards, which I think is the perfect explanation, because it really regulated, the skateboarding regulated itself. It called people out at that time. I feel that doesn't exist nearly as.
Well, they did call people out back then, and it got kind of ugly.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like, what's that?
No, I was just gonna say, it depends on, if you were on the receiving end, it maybe wasn't so nice.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, it was sort of like, stay in these lines.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want like doing a flip trick and like beating up the ground with your board and not catching it and landing all sketchy. Like, we're drawing the line there, But the beauty, I think, of skateboarding also is when you draw that line, whether it's sketchy flip tricks or whatever, or skating in a way that's unconventional. The interesting thing about skateboarding is there are a few people who jump over that line and people love it. They're like, oh, I can't stand varial flips. But then people are like, you know what? Brian Anderson doing a varial flip, like, I could take that. I'm okay with that. So there's like, like you said, it's like there's a language there that's kind of developed just really organically. And that I think is maybe gone for the most part. But generally, I think what you said about the understory is understanding who these guys were, and Arto and Jamie and guys like that, talking about things candidly, that really makes sense when you think about their skateboarding, like this deep like desire to achieve something or to make a mark on skateboarding. That comes from somewhere.
Yeah, the drive was, undoubtedly, like, it was noticeable at the time. In going back and looking at all the old photos, was there a time that you maybe have the fondest memories about, that you miss, that made you?
I think I do really love that 92, 93, 94.
Yeah.
But I think that the nostalgia for that also is connected to the amount of photos that I screwed up from that period. Like I looked at stuff and I was like, damn, like, ooh, that's a little underexposed, or, but I like that. I like looking back at that period because there is nostalgia in seeing something that you've done that wasn't good at some point, because everybody goes through that, like when you watch like whatever, like a Michael Jordan when he first started, you're like, yeah, I can see how he's still trying to figure it out. And those are cool moments because you're seeing like that they're sort of really struggling and trying to like understand the craft. And I think so when I think back to 92, 93, 94, I'm like, man, that was fun. Just like making mistakes, nothing mattered, like there was, it was just, you were out there, you were in a place in your career where you could make mistakes and there weren't really any consequences.
Yeah, you could fail upward, maybe, in some respects. Well, I want to encourage everyone that's watching right now, 93 Till, A Photographic Journey Through Skateboarding in the 1990s. I believe they can purchase it online at our site at actionsportsculture.com/merch. Where else can they go to get their hands on your book?
I would go through the publisher, just because, publisher, the publisher that I did the book with is a small publisher, and I like to support. I'm you know, sorry, you know, it's good to support the little guy, you know, like Amazon's going to have the book, but you know, Amazon's Amazon. And, you know, I'd rather have people selling the book that have a real interest in what it's about, which is why I did the whole thing with skate shops for the first month that the book's out. Yeah, just skate shops and online ordering from the publisher is the only place you can get it for the first month. Ordering a book online, you just go to goffbooks.com. That's GOFFBOOKS.com.
Well, Pete Thompson, we thank you for checking in. Stay safe in New York there, and hopefully things will get back to normal.
I hope so. Yeah, same to you.
All right, take care.
Bye, guys. See ya.